Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I am your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Coming at you on this Monday night edition. Co-host Will Miles. You can find him at Will Miles SEC right there on social media, right there on X as well. All right, Will. 5 straight losses to the Bulldogs. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. But, that's why you make a coaching change. 24-20, Florida goes down to Georgia Saturday right here in Jacksonville. And a game, a coulda, shoulda, woulda game for the Gators, like many this season have been. Just cannot find a way to come out with a victory right here over the hated Bulldogs. So plenty to get into. Billy Gonzalez talked to the media today. He looked back, of course, at the film and what he saw in the game. And look, we're going to get into some, he talked about, the middle 8. We'll get into that, but some trends as well, that I've put out in the last couple of days as well. And the schedule does ease up for the Gators. You got Kentucky, Ole Miss, of course, that's a tough game, but then Tennessee kind of faltering down here lately, ending the season with Florida State. So, schedule does ease up a bit. It doesn't even look like it as tough as it did at one time. I mean, you had, we played top 5 Miami. Well, Miami's not top 5 any longer. Hey, we played top 5 LSU. LSU's not top 5 any longer. So the schedule has just kind of been all over the place right now. And, hey, look, it's Texas A&M who ends up being one of your tougher opponents. It's Ole Miss who ends up maybe being one of your tougher opponents. Georgia, of course, right there. Texas has kind of, not lived up to the expectations. So the schedule, while hard, maybe – when you had played these teams, especially earlier in the season, they're not top 5 worthy, but schedule easing up as the Gators are going to head into November here. So we'll look at some trends, so the Gators can kind of maybe capitalize and end the season on a high note.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that Tennessee and Ole Miss are necessarily making it any easier. 2 of the last 4 games, I think. That's one of the things that's so disappointing about this loss to Georgia and the season overall is that you look and, I think coming into this season, I didn't really believe in Carson Beck at Miami. I didn't believe in Gunnar Stockton at UGA. I didn't believe in Garrett Nussmeier at LSU. I was a huge believer in DJ Lagway, and that turns out to be the one that I missed the most out of all these things. And so, I went into the season thinking Florida was going to have a significant advantage at the quarterback position in a lot of these games, and it's been a disadvantage in all these games. And, you end up 3-5 because of it, right? Florida just cannot get anything going on offense no matter who they play. And, the defense has played admirably, and in fact, I think has played above its underlying statistics in terms of the points it's given up. But the reality is that you're not going anywhere in the SEC if you're only allowed to give up 20 points. Like if you give up more than 20 points, and I went back and looked. I think every game in the Billy Napier era, or at least that had Billy Napier's players and/or teams playing against Georgia, 20 points, 20 points, 20 points. 20 points.
Yep.
0-4. So we know what needs to come. The good news is that the blueprint has been laid for what someone's going to need to do in order to beat Georgia. And in fact, if you look at the only real win that Florida's had in I think they're 8-2 in the Kirby Smart era. They won the first one, and then they won the one in 2020. And that one in 2020, they were down by 14 and then came roaring back and scored 40-something points in that one. So that's what's necessary, right? Like Florida is going to have to score some points moving forward. And, they're going to have to figure out how to do that in a couple of these games moving forward too, because, Tennessee's got a top 10 offense. Florida State, actually, for all the struggles they've had, they're sitting in like top 15 for scoring. Ole Miss is right there too, and then Kentucky is maybe one breather that Florida has. But there's a Kentucky team to beat Auburn last week, right? So
and they play better at home.
I mean, and Florida has not shown in the last 4 years that they're going to go out and play on the road in any capacity the way they will in Jacksonville or the way they will in the Swamp. So, it could still get ugly before this season ends. Hopefully it doesn't, because, I still have the game to go down there with Max. Hopefully they're still playing hard by the time that Florida State rivalry comes around. But, I mean, like you said, you just get tired of it after a while, right? You look at it, you go, it's a close loss. Woo! Like, yay! Like, that's great. We've had a lot of close losses this year. We've had a lot of games where if just you could get one more stop from the Florida defense, then maybe Florida would be able to win. Didn't get a stop in any of those games. USF game, the Miami game, the LSU game, even though they did get the turnover from Nussmeier in that one. And then this game where, Georgia just runs out the clock to end the game. They can't even get the ball back. And, the third downs were terrible again. I think, what were they, 2 for 13, something like that in the game.
11, I think. Yep.
Even though the third downs, it was, or maybe 2 for 11, it was, they averaged though like 5 yards per on third down. So they were getting in position, unlike in Napier's first part of the season, where it was always 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9.
Right.
This year, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, couldn't really get it done this week. So, I mean, it's as hard as it is to say, like, the change in Billy Napier, we all hoped was going to change stuff. And, I tried to talk myself out of it last week when we were sitting here. I'm like, I'm looking at the stats. I don't know if this is a team that can just flip the switch. And then it turned out this isn't a team that can just flip the switch. We got exactly what we've gotten all year long.
Yep.
Which is why we got another loss to Georgia.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the trends there. Third down, that could be, I chronicled it Saturday night, yesterday in the member chat as well. That's one more trend that Florida's going to have to reverse here coming up, and we'll get into some more of them right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. So everybody hit that like button. Those likes, of course, really, really help us out. If you're watching us live right now on Gators Breakdown, like many of you are, that really, really does help us out because that YouTube algorithm gets us noticed a little bit more. So this all just. Still got some games to talk about. That's what we're going to be doing right here on Gators Breakdown. Subscribe right here on YouTube as well, or your favorite podcast platform. And, hey, Gators Breakdown Plus, good place to be right now if you want to keep the conversation going. A lot of talk. I mean, the basketball game's going on right now. There's a basketball chat room, so you can certainly talk some b-ball in there. So that keeps it lively. Of course, this time of year when football and basketball kind of come together. And right there in that Discord. So you get access to the Discord, gatorsbreakdownplus.com. You get ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown as well, access to the member chats on Discord as well. Starting at $3 a month, gatorsbreakdownplus.com. And look, it's been a hot seller all weekend long. The Move Back You Suck shirt. The link is in the description if you want to get that. Everybody, thanks for your support. And that one, I've gotten a lot of messages about that one. People have seen it and asked where they've gotten it, and so many reactions to it. So going to pub it a little bit more because it was selling pretty good this past weekend right there. So link is in the description. I'll get the storefront and all that stuff set up a little bit better. But for now, easiest way to get it. Link is in the description to get the Move Back You Suck shirt. So. Well, it's so much fun when you get to do that. I mean, I know Florida has sucked, but when you're in the stands, I'm usually in the press box, of course. But for Florida, Georgia, I want to go be a fan. Everybody knows that's my personal Super Bowl, and right there in the stands and doing Move Back You Suck and stuff. It's a lot of fun. I mean, everybody takes part in it. The rival fans laugh at it and like it as well. It's just it's become a cool tradition there for Florida, and I decided to make a shirt about it, and a lot of people like it. So there we go.
Yeah, well, I showed that to Max the other day, and he's all in. He definitely wants one. So he's negotiating with his mother right now in terms of when he's allowed to wear it.
Okay,
if he when we finally pull the trigger and get him one. But
well, just let me know. I'll take care of Max. Just let me know.
Well, as an aside to you calling this your Super Bowl, as someone who is a card-carrying member of the Buffalo Bills fan club over here, I'll tell you, I'm sorry. Because it really sucks to get kicked in your nuts all the time whenever your team can't win the Super Bowl. So, yeah, man, that's rough. The last decade for Gator fans going to the stands. Now, one of the ways I sort of ended my article this week was talking about my other son, Hugh. He's an avid Dodgers fan, and so he stayed up the last year I actually woke him up to watch the Dodgers win the World Series. This year, let him watch the entire thing. Game goes into extra innings. He's sitting there yawning. I'm like, don't you dare go to bed. Like your team doesn't win the championship that often. You need to pay attention. You need to appreciate it when it happens. So it was a little reminder to me that the highs come at some point eventually, and they're pretty awesome when they do. And if you got people to share them with, that's even better. So it's common for Gator fans at some point, just not in 2025.
For sure. So, all right, yeah, well, maybe get back there one day. But that's why we're in a coaching change right now. But season's still to play. So Florida did go to Jacksonville, takes on Georgia, and going back to your article a little bit too, and everything you've put out, it's been, of course, the talking point the last couple of weeks. Besides, of course, looking for a new head coach is what would be different with the Florida offense. No, Ryan O'Hara, Callaway, both in the box. So O'Hara being the play caller, rallying it, putting it down there to Spurrier on the field and relaying the message to DJ Lagway. What would you take away from the offense as far as anything different? Did you notice anything different fundamentally, tendency-wise, for this Gator offense from what we saw with Billy Napier not calling them plays for the first time?
I mean, they didn't run spacing on 3rd and short. That was good. Didn't have to see that stupid concept, at least not in. They didn't run double slants on 3rd or 4th down where they were trying to get stuff there. I think they went against tendency quite a bit. I think if you look at the actual film, there were a lot of guys who were open. Again, my issue has never been Napier's offense per se. It's always been a question of sequencing and predictability, right? That it was like you knew you were getting double slants on 4th and 3. Like you knew that was coming. and so did the opposition. I think, they did use Lagway's legs in a way that he has not been used all year long. That's probably the most obvious change. Trey Wilson is alive. It was good to see him get some catches along the way. It is frustrating, I suppose, that we can only find one guy to get the ball to every week. Like we can't have Trey Wilson and Dallas Wilson and Aiden Mizell, one, stay healthy for an entire game, but two, also like move the ball around and get it to different people along the way. Look, I mean, the offense is limited at quarterback. That's just the reality. And it's not, it's nothing that I would say any differently if it was Luke Del Rio or if it was Graham Mertz or anything like that. The offense is limited at the quarterback position. You saw it, you were there. Yep. And you go back and look at the replays, and God, on that 3rd and 4 where he misses Sturdivant, he had somebody else coming right across the middle too, who was wide open on the secondary.
Trey Wilson, I believe, on that one.
Yeah. I mean, and it's one of those things where it's like he was flushing himself from the pocket when he didn't need to.
Yep.
And so he's throwing the ball on the run late.
Yeah.
And I mean, normally you'd sit there and go, oh my God, don't throw that ball. And for some reason, Georgia just decided not to cover Sturdivant deep. But he had 2 guys deep on a 3rd and 4. And then you sit there and on the 4th down, there's some debate. They had a free runner at him, and perhaps if he'd have held it another half beat, maybe he sees on a high low that he gets the ball out on the corner route rather than the little out route that gets jumped. But leaving yourself in that 4th and 4 situation is because you didn't execute on 3rd and 4. There are multiple times where there are guys streaking downfield who are wide open and they just missed. And the reality is that Florida, we've been harping on them not throwing the ball deep all season long, but when they've given him opportunities, they haven't been able to do it. Now it is true they're throwing it deep a lot less, so they're down on a percentage basis. They're down compared to Lagway last year. Florida's down 7%, throws 20+ yards down the field. They're down 11%, throws 10 to 19% down the field compared to last year. They're down 15% on yardage on 20+ yard throws down the field. So they've thrown it about the same amount of time. So they've thrown it 30 times this year, 36 last year, and they're down 15% on yards. So everything has been short. They got 103 passes this year for Lagway between 0 and 9 yards from the line of scrimmage, only 63 last year compared to 36 deep and 30 deep this year and last year. So his average depth of target's down 8.1 versus 11.8 last year. Big time throws are down. 9 this year versus 18 last year. Turnover worthy plays are up 16 this year, 7 last year. Just every single thing sort of points to the quarterback position, including QB rating. I was telling you before we came on, I did a little bit of a deep dive and looked at Austin Appleby in 2016. And yards per attempt for Appleby, 6.92. For Lagway this year, 6.83. Touchdowns, 10-7 for Appleby, 10-9 for Lagway. QB rating, 128 for Appleby, 128.5 for Lagway. Rushing yards, so 41 for negative 45 yards for Appleby, 45 for 36. So Lagway not really making a difference when it comes to his legs either, which is a big part of the stats I usually put together. So Appleby went 4-3 as a starter in the time that he took over for Luke Del Rio there in 2016, but they had an elite defense. So 16.8 points per game, 6th in the country is what they were giving up. They averaged 19.4 points per game on offense. Lagway's 2-5 as a starter if you take out the LIU. Less than elite defense, 20.5 points per game, 23.4 if you take out LIU, but they've only scored 17.4 points per game when you take out the LIU game that they started the season with. So basically, you got to win games 17-14, 17-12. Like, they happen to have one game against Texas where they got up on them early and put up 27. Other than that, like everything's been 14, 17, 13, that sort of stuff. That's a lot of pressure to put on your defense, and the Florida defense just isn't good enough at this point in order to be able to turn that around against good teams. And look, I think Texas, good team. I think Georgia, good team. I think LSU, decent team. I think Miami, good team. None of these are great teams.
No.
I don't look at any of them and go, wow, that juggernaut came in. Like last year,
Right.
Florida got blown off the field by Texas. None of that's happened this year. But I mean, we are sort of at a point where it's like, okay, guys, like I get that you come out and you play hard every week, but at some point, like you gotta make the play. Like at some point when the guy's streaking down the field, the quarterback's got to be able to get it to him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of not reading the defense. It's not a matter of it not being, I mean,
Make
two
a play.
guys wide
Make a
open
play.
on that 3rd and 4 play that you just got to make the play.
Yeah.
And, whether the guy's getting paid $3 million or $30,000 doesn't really matter. You got to make that play if you're going to be playing on a Saturday in the SEC. And if you want to play on Sundays, you're going to have to make that play too. In fact, if you're going to play on Sundays, you got to make that play 100 out of 100 times. So, I think it's fair to criticize the quarterback play because the quarterback play has been substandard. We would have criticized Austin Appleby or Luke Del Rio, Treon Harris. We would have criticized all those guys if they had QB ratings of 128.5 because when you put up a quarterback rating well below average, you are preventing your team from winning. And that's what's happening right now with DJ Lagway at the quarterback position.
Yeah, and you're right about that is we all understand the situation and missing all of the offseason. That doesn't put him above criticism.
Spot the ball, man.
Yeah, I fully admit, I probably overlooked all the time that he missed in the offseason. Maybe it was some hope. I don't know. I'll fully admit, I didn't think it would have this much of an effect. But I still don't know how much to put on that. Is it having some effect? I'm sure it is. I can't quantify that. I mean, some people have said it in the comments too. You go back and look at last year, we were hoping for a leap, a progression for DJ Lagway. He wasn't perfect last year. We just thought there would be a year 1 to year 2 jump, a progression. Missing that time certainly has an effect on that. I don't know how to quantify it, but man, it's just as you said. At some point, just make a play. I mean, as you said, you got 2 guys wide open. You decide to throw it. I don't blame you for making that throw. But man, as you said, I didn't even realize it in real time until I went back and watched the game. It was one of the best pockets he's probably had all year long. I mean, that was another thing. There was plenty of clean pockets against Georgia. Georgia's not a great pass rushing team. That continued on Saturday. There was time for Lagway, and especially this play that we're making. He didn't have to drift left. He didn't have to run up and take a couple steps to launch it, and it still falls short anyway. At that point, just make a play. I don't care what time you missed. I don't care, this or that, an injury. Okay, but it's time to make a play. To be the man, you got to beat the man. And that was the perfect opportunity, one of the best opportunities to do so right there. And I don't want to harp on Lagway. It was certainly more than him, but if Florida's going to be any kind of better this year or live up to any kind of expectation, it's going to have to start with better quarterback play. And yeah, he's not above criticism. I know there's reasons. There can be reasons why he's not where we want him to be, but we can't just gloss over the fact that the quarterback needs to play better.
Nor should we. And I mean, I think that should be the expectation. Like you come and play at a big time SEC school, you're expected to play big time SEC football. We didn't go out and sign deals with Gatorade and all that stuff during the off season, right? And I mean, the season started the last week in August. So the idea that you haven't gotten enough reps, I mean, unless they're just not giving him reps during the week. And, we heard 3-4 weeks ago that they were finally doing ones-on-ones. Like those reps should be there, right? Like you've had time now to sort of work your way in. The fact that you missed all off season, I guess it's a reason, but it's not an excuse, right? If you're going to strap it up and you're going to play every Saturday, like you've been playing football since you were probably 5 years old, like at some point, like the instincts have to take over. And if it was the one play, right? If we're sitting there going, oh, he threw for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns and he missed Sturdivant and that would have given us the win. Okay. I'm a little bit more forgiving there. Right. But this, I mean, put it this way. The miss to Sturdivant was not the most egregious miss in either half.
No.
And so, he missed the tight end going down the seam at some point early in the first half. And he missed a couple of shots where he had guys running free behind the offense or behind the defense there in the second half. It's not the only time that, that he missed. And, you miss over and over and over again. At some point, people notice, right? So, there was a bunch of stuff about him like goofing off with Georgia players after the game. Yeah. I don't care about that. Like, I don't need somebody like some killer, like whatever. Like, but I'd like you to like hit the play that's there, right? I mean, this isn't even a matter of like. So Graham Mertz was effective for the most part at doing what he was being asked to do and had physical limitations, and so was not really able to like really push the ball downfield. In this case, we saw last year that those limitations don't exist for Lagway, and just making the simple play has proven to be out of his grasp this year. It doesn't mean that he can't get there. It doesn't mean that he won't get there at some point along the way. But, I think it does suggest that there needs to be some significant competition for the position next year, because I'm not sure that any of us are going to be able to take another year of this.
Yeah. Brian, and the only reason I'm bringing this up, Will, is because you made the joke earlier before we came on. Brian 4921 says, I blame Will. He pumped us up with his graphs and statistics with Lagway. # Will's fault with a laughing emoji there. It just reminds me of what you told me when you said when you came down to your basement and what you see. It just reminded me of that.
Yeah, I got a picture. So I got a copy of my magazine sitting off the left-hand side with Lagway sitting there chucking a pass that I get to see every day. So I'm doing my penance, Brian. Every time I come down the basement, I see how wrong I was. That's the most aggravating thing is I don't think I was wrong about Beck, Nussmeier. I don't think I was like, I think all the quarterbacks are kind of doing what I expected them to do, except for Lagway. And it's just really frustrating to see that, the thing was, we knew that this season was going to be on his shoulders. And honestly, if Lagway was playing just like he played last year, Florida's probably 6-2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they lose to Miami. Maybe they lose to, I don't know. I mean, maybe they're 7-1. I don't even know. But they win that game against Georgia this weekend easy. Yeah. If he's playing like he did last year against LSU and Ole Miss. They beat LSU easy if he's playing halfway decent. And quite honestly, I think the running game looks a whole lot better too, because teams have basically realized heavy box zone behind it, and he's going to make some mistakes along the way. And look, the 3rd and 4 to Sturdivant's going to get criticism, but the 4th and 4 almost was a house call. Like that was one where probably should have been a pick six going in the other direction, which maybe would have been better for Florida than what ended up happening, which is Georgia took over the ball and just deflated it the rest of the time. But I mean, look, you get an inordinate amount of credit when you're the quarterback. You are a legend when you are a quarterback at the University of Florida and succeed. And I don't just say that like that's not hyperbole, right? Like a statue will be put up of you outside the stadium if you're a quarterback who wins the Heisman Trophy or a quarterback who plays at an elite level. That's the standard, right? The standard is a quarterback who's going to put up 40 points a game, who's going to win national championships, who's going to win SEC championships, and who's going to lead everybody. But, I bet you John Brantley doesn't feel great about the way the fans treated him at Florida. I bet you Felipe Franks doesn't feel great about the way the fans treated him at Florida. I bet you Treon Harris doesn't feel great. Tyler Murphy doesn't feel great. Skylar Morenweg doesn't feel great. Luke Del Rio doesn't feel great. Like, there's an expectation that the quarterback is going to lead the team to the promised land. And, we all thought, and I think rightly so, thought Lagway was a guy who had the potential to do that, especially after what we saw last year. So the fact that hasn't happened is not just disappointing, but it's sort of, just the air goes out of your sails because, it's like, oh God, we got to muck up another game. I mean, I might pick Tennessee or I might pick Florida to beat Kentucky this week, but it ain't going to be 35-7. It's going to be like 17-10, right? Like they're going to have to win a rock fight, which is sort of the way it's been all year long. And, rock fights aren't that fun, especially when you don't come out on top.
For sure. Let's end the Lagway talk here, and we'll get into some other trends too. But well, to your point, yeah. I mean, got to get a better quarterback play moving forward as well if you want to end this season on a high note. And hey, look, let's remember now, Lagway's coming out party was against a Kentucky defense last year when he made a start and was certainly chucking the ball all over the place. Billy Gonzalez said today, I think the biggest thing for DJ is just to continue to relax. He made some plays. We would have liked to hit every single pass. Yeah. We've just got to let him play, get him in the flow of things. He's a very talented young man, so continue to put him in a position, continue to pare things down, get multiple reps at things, get him the looks through practice. If there's an issue, go back, correct it. Don't just let it go. Correct it right then and there. Let him get the rep, repeat it, and fix it, and move on to the next play. So I thought the paring down was a pretty interesting comment there, for this offense. And maybe that's what they're, trying to do. I know it was mentioned in here, what maybe changed in the offense a little bit. And I think we saw less motion as well, maybe a simpler approach to the offense overall when we look at that. So, but yeah, certainly got to get better quarterback play. But hey, there's a lot more trends to get into. And one, of course, Billy Gonzalez spent a lot of time on today. But before we get there, well, the Gators are back favorites. You can bet it right there at MyBookie. Florida is a 3-point favorite at Kentucky on the road. So over under currently sits at 43.5. So hey, you want to go bet the Gators as a favorite at Kentucky. 3-point favorites. Go bet it right there at MyBookie. One account, one wallet. You can bet football all weekend. Get in on the NFL action as well with game lines and player props and more. You get on the NFL Super Contest, Survivor pools. And then you can, of course, go play those casino games. One account, one wallet. Just all that action right there at MyBookie. If you're new to MyBookie, use our promo code Gators, and your first bet up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back with a bet back bonus. No stress, just a one-time rollover on your return bet so you can reload and keep firing. So sign up at mybookie.ag with promo code Gators and claim your bet back bonus. Well, let's hear from interim coach Billy Gonzalez, and really goes into, he was asked a question about Ryan O'Hara and him being the play caller. And Gonzalez takes it, he done some things well, but one area we really need to get better, and it's been an issue for a while. That'd be the middle eight.
I think he did a great job. We were in a situation to win the game. I think that we can surround and say different things about how things, would you have changed things? I thought the flow of the game went well. I think if we were to say anything about the game itself, and that one area that I can stress, we need to be better on the middle eight. And again, I talked about starting fast, focus, and then finishing strong. Stay focused and finish strong. Start fast, to me. To start fast, I thought we did a pretty good job. We came out the blocks offensively. We put some points up defensively. They scored the first drive, but that's okay. Our defense answered, and they came back for 5 straight drives and stopped them. So for me, that's a start fast on both offense and defense. The focusing part to me is what we call the middle eight, and that's the last 4 minutes of the second quarter and the first 4 minutes of the third quarter. Okay, and collectively, again, I know we can look at a lot of the back end of the game. Yeah, that's part of it too. But to me, the part that we can teach, that we can get better at as a staff, as a group of players, the coaches, everybody, is to that middle eight. That was a 10-point swing. So for us, that's what I look at. I look at getting the team better and how can we get better. Yeah, there's a bunch of individual plays, but if we start looking collectively on offensive, defensive, and the special teams unit together, how can we improve? I'm going to focus on that middle eight.
So Willie mentioned, he thought the flow of the game was better. You mentioned that. I mentioned that too. He did look like the game flowed a little bit better, whether, be the communication from up top to, down low and read and getting it to the players. Didn't have the stupid too many men on the field. Didn't have all the procedure penalties that we're used to seeing for Florida. That was cleaned up. The operation itself was better. Billy Gonzalez, but credit to him for not leaving it out. I mean, he went into even more detail. We're about to go into it as well here about just how crucial that middle eight was. And hey, look, we've talked about it for basically since Billy Napier's been here. But going back to your preseason magazine, you and Nick detailed it in length last year. It's been an issue this year too. So Florida in this game against Georgia, of course, got the ball back with 2:34 left in the first half at their own 9, up 10-7. And Florida's about to get the ball coming out of halftime as well. So perfect chance. The middle eight would have, if you're going to beat Georgia, you got to you got to take control. So you're up by 3. You have the ball. You're getting the ball after halftime. There's 2.5 minutes left in the game. Starting on your own 9-yard line. So a chance to go up multiple scores here. So a couple of plays in, Florida gets the ball to the Florida 35, at their own 35 after a targeting penalty on Georgia. A couple of plays later, you had the terrible sequence of Lagway missing the wide open Tank Hawkins, and then he fumbles the ball for a loss of 13 all the way back to the 22. I mean, there's 2 plays right there. Lagway himself really messed up Florida here in the middle eight. So Georgia takes over with a minute 6 left on their own 37. They hit a couple of plays that go for 17 yards and 20 yards. And then, of course, a field goal. They're able to tie the game 10-10 at halftime. Florida just couldn't do anything with just 2.5 minutes on the clock, up by 3. So instead of doing anything, they're tied at halftime now. So then after halftime, Florida offense comes out, goes 3 and out. Georgia responds with a 42-yard catch and run by Zachariah Branch. And then the 22-yard touchdown by Noah Thomas, where Jordan Castell all he has to do is play the ball. But for whatever reason, wants to, try to break the pass up, letting the receiver catch it. 17-10 Georgia right there after that moment. I mean, it was 10-7 with Florida in 2.5 minutes, and somehow, right there in the middle eight, you're down 17-10. So the horrible, horrible play and it was on both sides. We laud this defense for keeping Florida in it a lot of ways. But right before halftime, you let them get a field goal, and then coming out of halftime, hit a couple of explosive plays. You lost it 10-0. It was on both sides. It wasn't just the offense. It was the defense as well. Offense couldn't sustain anything, missed an easy touchdown, and the defense in these high leverage moments giving up a lot of chunk plays. So it was a moment, Florida really had a chance to take advantage, stretch a lead, only to find themselves losing after the middle eight.
I mean, same story, right? It's not like, I think I would agree that the 12 men on the field penalties, the clueless timeouts, like those sorts of things went away, which was good. Like, right, that the game day operation changed, though it does make me wonder why we couldn't delegate responsibilities while Napier was here to people who could make that work well. We'll see. Maybe that'll come back and bite us in the butt in the next couple of weeks, right? Like,
and you have a true road game this week too, so a little different circumstances.
One game does not a trend make, right? Also, you're coming off a bye week, so you've had 2 weeks to prepare. That probably makes a difference. I think the big thing for me is not necessarily the 10-0. It's that if you look at the first drive of each half, so the drives where the offense has had an opportunity to sit down, study what you're doing, and make adjustments, or at least the opening drive is scripted, right? Georgia wins those 14-0, right? Like, and in a game that's 24-20, obviously that 14-0 makes a difference. Like, they come out to start the game, 8 plays, 75 yards and a touchdown, force Florida to adjust, and then they come out in the second half, 5 plays, 74 yards and a touchdown, right? And Florida has to adjust. I think, kudos to Florida for being able to come right back after that touchdown. They had a 12, 79-yard drive, aided by a couple of pass interference penalties, and a Lagway run. But, the thing is it felt like even when Florida was ahead, that they were always just like living on an edge. And that's really what the middle eight gives you, right? Is it gives you a little bit of breathing room to where you can make a mistake, to where you can take a chance. If you win that one 10-0, especially because, like you said, Florida deferred, there's no point in deferring if you're going to come out, punt when you get the ball 2.5 minutes left, and then punt after a 3 and out to open up the second half. Like, deferring doesn't do you any good at that point. So I guess it prevents the other team from doing it to you, but it didn't in this case, right? But yeah, I mean, I think to me, it's more a matter of when offenses have the ability to sort of settle down at halftime or come out and execute everything they've been meaning to execute. Florida's defense doesn't really have an answer right now. And I've been talking all year about how the underlying stats for the Florida defense don't necessarily match what's happening on the scoreboard. And again, that sort of happened in this one, that, they gave up 5.5 yards per play, which puts you right at like 70th in the country. You would expect a team to give up like 28, 29 points per game if they were at that rating, and they gave up 24. But they're doing everything they can on the defensive side of the ball to give some sort of advantage. But it seems like when the offense has a little bit of urgency, right?
Yeah.
Like right at the end of the half, the Florida defense, that bend but don't break, becomes a problem. And then when they come out in the second half, everybody's like, okay, like we know what we're going to do to attack this thing now, and we're going to do it. So, I don't have a good answer. I mean, I'm glad that Billy Gonzalez is pointing it out. Obviously, being able to score at the end of the half and then start in the second half gives you 2 possessions in a row. It's essentially like a turnover, right? Yeah. It's like you get a turnover and you're able to turn the tables really quickly, maybe make a comeback if you're behind. Like it gives you some extra juice, but Florida hasn't been able to take care of that. Haven't been able to take advantage of that since 2020. And I think Florida just has limitations on offense. So to sit there and say, right, oh, well, they didn't take advantage of the middle 8. Yeah, they didn't take advantage of a whole lot in this game, right? I mean,
that's where I was going to go next.
And I'll tell you, the thing that's actually most disturbing is if you look at the first half, Florida averaged 5.8 yards per play. Georgia averaged 4.7, and the score was 10-10. Yep. That's where the game was lost. The game was not lost in the fourth quarter. I mean, technically it was, but the game wasn't lost in the fourth quarter. The game was lost in the first half because Florida should have been up 14-7, 17-7. Florida should have been up significantly more. I mean, Florida won the turnover battle in the first half too. They get an interception relatively deep in Georgia territory, get the explosive to Trey Wilson, then settle for a field goal after what I would term relatively conservative play calling down there in the red zone, and end up ahead 10-7, but in a game where it's going to come down to 3 or 4 points at some point along the way, to not go for it on fourth down suggests a conservatism that I certainly don't agree with. But to me, that's the thing. You average 5.8 yards per play in the first half. You get the broken coverage. Lagway hits that play. You got 2 explosives there in the first quarter, and you don't take advantage of it. In fact, you had a 22-yard run for Baugh that turned into a punt. Like, you can't waste explosive plays. If you get explosive plays, you got to take advantage of it. And, they had an opportunity to step on Georgia's throat there in the first half, didn't do it. And, 20-17 ahead going to the fourth quarter. So you'd say, hey, you need to be able to finish the job. But, again, because of the middle 8, because of sort of the first half in general, Florida's only up 3 points heading into that fourth quarter, can't convert the fourth down, and Georgia goes the other way, and all of a sudden it's a completely different ball game. And again, sort of the story of the Florida season, and really the Florida last 4 years, is that the offense is not dynamic enough to be able to give up points in any capacity. And that middle 8's a place to find an edge, but so is sort of the fourth down deep in Georgia territory. So is they had a 4th and 1 on their first drive that they decided to punt out of. Now they wound up with good field position and then had the broken play after that. But this is one of those where I do feel like, and really any of the games for the rest of the year, maybe not Kentucky, but the rest of the games, I do think Billy Gonzalez is going to have to find a place to find some edges to overcome some of the problems that he has on offense. But like we saw, 4th and 1 is not an automatic conversion for this offense either. Yeah. So, I get why maybe you'd be conservative there, but it is what it is. I mean, the middle 8 is tough when your offense isn't very good. It's just sort of reality, right? If you're averaging 20 points per game,
it's a pretty symbiotic relationship there.
I mean, I bet you Ohio State's great in the middle 8, right? I bet you Tennessee's great in the middle 8. It turns out when you score a bunch of points, it's really easy to be good in that middle 8 because you just score points on a fairly regular basis. Yeah. This Florida offense does not score points on a regular basis, and so it doesn't really surprise me in the last 4 minutes of the first half and the first 4 minutes of the second that that they don't like just tear it up in that 8 minutes of the game. It doesn't work like that, right? You can't just turn it on, turn it off. You got to be solid the whole way and then take advantage of that situation. They aren't even close to solid right now, and so they can't take advantage of it.
Yes, looking at it big picture again, I do agree. The Florida offense did seem better, maybe less predictable overall. Did open it up a little bit more, but also don't know how much. Not sure how much that plan changed once Dallas Wilson went out. Going to mention, you did mention Trey Wilson getting involved, but still, we talk about maybe this change, maybe that change, maybe it was a little bit open. I mean, Florida still only had 280 yards of offense.
It's the same offense, man. Like
right.
it's the same limitations, the same personnel. It's this whole season was DJ Lagway is going to take a step forward, and I don't care who's around him because DJ Lagway can be the best quarterback in the conference. Like that was the story of the entire season.
Right.
And DJ Lagway is one of the worst quarterbacks in the conference, if not the worst quarterback in the conference. And so it matters who you surround him with, right? I'm not sure if you surrounded him with Jeremiah Smith and Kyle Pitts that the team would be that much better, because it turns out that if you can't hit the guy when he's open,
there you go.
Like, and look, that's the confounding thing, is that when Shamir Dike and Elijah Badger were open last year, he hit them. And this year, when those guys are open, not those guys, but when he's got guys who are open, he's not hitting them. And the result is literally, if we look at like PFF rating, look at my stat, yards above replacement, look at QB rating, he's like next to last or last in every category in the SEC. And you score 17 points a game when that happens. That's just sort of the way things work.
Yeah, so there we go. One trend, middle eight, talking about just bad offense and these are there, timely defense, just not trying to be nitpicky here or anything, but, with the offense the way it is and the small margins for error that exist because of this offense, defense just got to come up with a little more clutch situations as we move forward to the rest of this season. And look, not to pile on the offense, but we are talking about Florida needing to capitalize on the rest of the season. So, some of these trends, some of them alarming that need to change. And, Will, you mentioned maybe not Florida losing this game in the fourth quarter, but it did continue a trend. I don't know if you saw me put this out on X over the weekend. I put it in the member chat last night as well. But, Will, the fourth quarter has just been terrible for Florida against FBS opponents. One more staple of a bad offense, of course. But, the defense – not too great here either. Of course, another just clutch moments, clutch situations for those guys. But in this game against Georgia, Florida only had 54 yards of offense, only scored 3 points in the fourth quarter. Georgia with 102, basically doubled Florida in the fourth quarter and had a touchdown there in the fourth quarter as well. Mississippi State, of course, Florida, 34 yards of offense, Will. They did get 10 points somehow with that in the fourth quarter, but Mississippi State, 192 yards in the fourth quarter. They have 14 points in the fourth quarter. And then look at that stretch, Will, of working in reverse order here. Texas A&M, Texas, Miami, LSU. Florida had no points at all in the fourth quarter of those games. The highest yards gain was 92 against LSU. We go back. It was a USF game. It was the first one that where we saw it, where they dominated the fourth quarter, doubled up Florida in the fourth quarter, and had that game-winning field goal right there late. So he was able to keep their offense on the field and put the game away on a late field goal. But Florida, 50 points or 50 yards they average in the fourth quarter so far this season, about 3 yards or about 3 points. Averaging about a field goal in the fourth quarter this season so far. And opponents are gaining about 117 yards and putting up, a touchdown in the fourth quarter. So fourth quarter just has not been kind to the orange and blue against the FBS opponents this year.
I mean, they're 3-5, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's the hallmark of a bad football team to get outscored in the fourth quarter. I think a couple of years ago, we were assured that the strength and conditioning program was to blame and, not in general the sort of attitude and strategy of the program. But I think, there's been some stuff in the comments here about, it's only been a couple of weeks since Napier left. You can't get rid of all that over a couple of weeks. And I think some of that is true, that there's an attitude adjustment that's necessary as well as a performance adjustment. And this sort of, I think, shows it, right? That you're getting outscored 8-3 in the fourth quarter over pretty much your entire season. And, Florida has had an opportunity in many of these games to win and just hasn't been able to get the job done. And
right.
You're not seeing turnovers in the fourth quarter for the most part. You're not seeing the defense step up and make a big play. In fact, you're seeing the defense sort of fade away in the third and fourth quarters. I mean, I cited the first half stats where Florida outgained Georgia 5.8 to 4.7 yards per play. Well, Georgia outgained Florida 5.5 to 5.0 for the entire game. So you can imagine the second half that Georgia was able to outgain Florida pretty significantly. And, whether it's strength and conditioning, whether it's the opposing team has finally sort of figured out what Florida's trying to do to them on defense, whether it's, look, the Gators were beaten up in the running game by Georgia in this one, 29 for 233. But it was 21 for 119. So only 8 rushes in the second half for more than 100 yards from the Georgia Bulldogs. You start giving up 233 yards rush, or I'm sorry, that's passing. If you look, they gave up 138 yards rushing in the total game for the on 39 rushes. So, but 39 rushes, right? So you've got the opposing team running the rock 39 times. You're going to start to get tired. We're down there in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, look, I think Gunnar Stockton made the plays in the second half when he needed to. 8 passes for 104 yards. That's what I was saying earlier. 8 for 104. So averages 13 yards per pass. Made a couple of big third down conversions on their touchdown drive. Florida stopped. Georgia had it 3rd and 8 to opening up the open up that drive, and then he converts on 3rd and 8. They had another big play. It's touchdown 3, 4, 5 plays later, and all of a sudden Georgia's ahead and everything puckers up for Florida. So, look, I when you're 3-5, 2-5 against FBS opponents, I'm not sure that you'd find a quarter where Florida is consistently the better team. I don't know if you've done that, Dave. Does it look the same in all 4 of these?
Right.
Is it just that we happen to be bad in the fourth, or okay in the first quarter? I don't even know.
I will have to go look that up. I think the second quarter maybe I'd have to go look. I remember seeing something somewhere, but that's a good point. But I just include fourth quarter because we know Florida has been close in these games. They've had chances to pull it out in the fourth quarter. And so whether first, second, third quarter are better in a lot of regard, maybe they are. But when rubber meets the road and you got to go make a play, clutch moments, clutch situations, and they're not doing them.
Well, we talked a little bit about the opposing offense's scripting, but Lagway, first quarter, 5 of 5, 87 yards and a touchdown. The rest of the game, 10 of 19, 79 yards. So he averaged 4.15 yards per pass in the second, third, and fourth quarter. There's your problem.
There's your problem.
There's your problem, right? Averaged 13 yards per pass there in the first quarter. Obviously, one of those is the 40-yard pass that goes to the touchdown, the broken play, but also a broken coverage, but also he hit like a 26, 27-yard pass to Trey Wilson as well on a little crosser where Wilson was wide open. So he hits those 2 in the first quarter. Those weren't available the rest of the game. Or maybe, and this is the more fundamental problem, they were available, but he did not hit them in the second, third, and fourth quarter. And you're just, again, out of everyone, I was the most encouraged about Lagway and the most optimistic about Lagway coming into this year. And if he was playing halfway decent and there were other things I could point to and say, this is the reason, I would, right? Like, I'm actually incentivized to make excuses for the guy. But at this point, it just is what it is. Like, when your quarterback goes 10 of 19 for 79 yards over the second, third, and fourth quarter, you're not going to win any games. And you're certainly not going to win the fourth quarter against a team where, like I said, Gunnar Stockton in the second half, 8 completions for 104 yards, averaged 13 yards per pass. They were able to run the ball, obviously hit the 36-yarder for Bowens. And, the combination of that was just enough for Georgia to eke it out. And you know what? Some of that is personality, right? Like, Kirby Smart doesn't allow excuses, right? Like, a couple years ago, they pulled out a game where they were completely flat against Missouri. This team this year does not have the same horses that Smart has had over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Certainly not in 2021, 2022. It's just a very different team, and it's not as good.
Yeah, Senator.
They're still 7-1.
Yeah, he puts that in the chat here. Keep in mind, Georgia's done this all season long. They play okay for the first 3 quarters and then do what they need to do to win at the end. Had the same problems every team had playing Georgia. Yeah, sure, but the opportunity's there. Florida's got a 4th and 1. Make that conversion, and you likely win. So, to me, that's more about Florida than it is Georgia at that point. But it is what it is. You're all right. That is just what Georgia has done all year, and like I said earlier, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And for Florida, couldn't do it. Couldn't get it done. Will, just some other stats that I was thinking of. Going to the middle eight and how Florida could have ended the first half with something and started the second half with something. Well, Florida doesn't have back-to-back drives this year with touchdowns. It blows my mind. Another stat of a bad offense. No 2 drives in a row have ended in touchdowns. Can't build a lead. Can't sustain a lead. I mean, that just blew my mind. I was like, I knew it maybe was, I'm not counting FIU. This is against FBS opponents out there, everybody. But, Georgia, they did have a touchdown and a field goal. Twice. They did have 2 back-to-back scoring drives, just not 2 touchdowns put together. Mississippi State, a touchdown and a field goal. Texas A&M, no back-to-back scoring drives. Texas, touchdown, field goal, touchdown. So 2 in that one, but no touchdowns back-to-back. Miami, none, of course. LSU, none. USF opened up the game, field goal. There's just no drives back-to-back that ended up in touchdowns.
Well, now you know why we can't win the middle 8. That would require 2 back-to-back drives that are actually effective, right?
Yeah.
Again, I think the field goal aspect of that is not necessarily the so there's a couple things there, right? One is that I don't believe that the offense necessarily puts its players in the best position to succeed. That is one thing that continued in this one is 2nd and short, 3rd and short. They were not taking shots and then going back to the running game, which is something I've harped on all year long. Like when you get the defense on its heels, you get an 8-yard run to start, and on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th down run stops that Georgia had on that last drive. I mean, you're deep in Georgia territory. They're creeping up toward the line of scrimmage. You just got it to 2nd and 2 and then 3rd and 1. They've got 9 guys in the box. Why are we running into them, right? Like play action, something's open, but you got to trust your quarterback to do that, right? And so clearly I think that's a place that's lacking. But, it's just a bad offense. Like, I wish I had something else to say, but I just don't, right? Like every stat you put up there, I'm like, it's like watching Austin Appleby lead the 2016 Florida Gators.
Yeah, one more time. I'm not trying to pile on here. It's just, hey, these are winnable games coming up, I think. Kentucky's a winnable game. Ole Miss is a winnable game. Tennessee's a winnable game. For FSU, a winnable game.
You think Ole Miss and Tennessee are winnable?
Yes. With the way this team, with the way this team's played, yes. They're going to be in those games.
Really?
Yeah.
They're averaging 40 points a game, like Ole Miss and Tennessee.
Ole Miss, maybe not. Tennessee, Tennessee has horrors in the swamp.
I'm looking at the over/under for this Kentucky game. Going, I think it's 20 points too high. It's like 42 or something. I'm banging the under on that one, man.
They've been in every other game this year. Why would I think they ain't going to be in those games?
Well, I mean, I don't think they've played a very good offense yet this year.
You're right.
Texas, not a good offense.
A&M's
Miami, not great, especially the last few weeks.
Yeah. A&M's a good offense.
And they scored 34 points, and the game wasn't close, right? So like I'm sitting here looking at the only time
it was still somewhat of a game. I mean, Florida wasn't going to win. Don't get me wrong. No, they weren't. But I wouldn't call it a blowout.
Put it this way. Every time Florida's been down by a touchdown, I've just been like, oh, crap. Game's over. Right? Yeah. That's what made this one like somewhat enjoyable is that there were only a couple of times where Florida was actually down by enough and they came right back and scored and got it back to like they were down 17-10 at one point and then they made it 17-17 on the next drive. But, even when it was 24-20, you're like, they got to score a touchdown. That's not a lot. Yeah. Right. And when you're in that situation, if there's a team that has the ability to convert a big play, there's no possible way I'm picking them against Tennessee or against Ole Miss.
I'm not picking it, but
I'm taking the under in a rock fight against Kentucky. And I got to watch some FSU film to understand what's going on there. It'll probably be kind of fun. It'll be the only fun I have this year watching film because I get to see some of their losses. But I mean,
I'm not saying I'm picking them to win, but they can win those games. Ole Miss, I don't. That one's very questionable to me. On the road, they're not beating a good team on the road. They're not beating Ole Miss. But
I mean, you're putting an awful lot of stock in the house of horrors that is the Swamp, Tennessee. And that one, hey, I hope you're right. I do. But I just, college football is a game where if you only score 20 points, you are not going to win very many games. And
nope.
Josh Heupel's offense almost always scores more than 20 points. And
Didn't say they win. Come on. Just said
okay.
they can. Just said they can. There's no, I mean, look,
Well, look, I mean, I've been great with my predictions all year long, so hopefully I'm great with these two, and they
Hey,
come out and prove me wrong. But.
Yeah, here's Billy G on it. Moving forward and kind of the status of the team as we move toward the end of the season here.
I think for us as a coaching staff, and I think for players, if you're a competitor, no matter who you're playing, you're going to go out and go play. If you're playing one-on-one pickup basketball game against somebody at the rec center, your goal is to win no matter what you're doing. So for us, the challenge is to continue to keep pushing the guys, continue to put them in the best possible position. But these guys they've done a really good job. We're going to go out there. I just got done talking to Tyler in the weight room before we came up. I asked how the attitude was. Attitude was great. He said they had a great day in the weight room. Attitude, yesterday the guys came in, checked in with the training staff just to make sure if there were any injuries or nicks, and they did a good job. These guys want to win, so getting them motivated, I don't think that'll be an issue. They were fired up last week, and they'll be fired up this week. We just got to focus on our team. Stay together, stay strong, continue to improve, fight, play together, play for one another, and understand when we're playing that game, we got to make sure that these guys understand. I'm looking over here at Gums. They're playing for each other, and this is an opportunity. We got a lot of football ahead of us, and take pride. Each individual take pride and take ownership of this team. So when you're playing for your teammates, it's a little harder to let somebody down next to you. You go out and continue to play really, really darn hard, and that's what the selling point for this team. It's one game at a time. Let's go take care of what we need to do. And, we were in a position last week. We came up short, and I told you that's unacceptable. We want to win. Our players want to win. Their coaching staff wants to win. University wants to win. Our fans want to win, and that's the number one goal.
There we go. And, I was on the radio there at 1010 here and with Hacker, and I know you're on his show every now and then too. And he was asking me about – the bottom falling out. And I was like, well, I don't know if the bottom will fall out. I mean, there was plenty of times for it to happen last season and it never did. Plenty of times for it to happen this season. And we haven't seen it yet. I mean, I expect this team to kind of just show up the way they have and be in these games. No, not necessarily win them, but I don't think the bottom's going to fall out. I still think this team will show up. I think the players still want to go out there and play. But these trends we just talked about, if they want to beat Kentucky on the road, going to be competitive with Ole Miss on the road, Tennessee at home, FSU at home. I mean, are those winnable games? Sure, I think for Ole Miss probably. They're also losable games. So let me go to the other side of that. How this team is played. They're not separating from anybody. You're not separating from Kentucky. I expect all these games to be dogfights, home or away. Sounds good on the surface of what we're, Billy G and maybe the bottom not falling out for this team. Just go reverse some trends. Go put something together in November. Try to end the season on a high note. I think the schedule does ease up a bit besides the Ole Miss game. Go try and take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I'm struggling with apathy right now, if I'm completely honest, where I'm just like, like if Florida wins by 3, it doesn't change my life next week. And if Florida wins by 30, it doesn't change my life. And if Florida loses by 30, it doesn't really change my life either. And that's a tough place to be because I want games in November that actually matter. That was sort of the promise this year, right? Was that, hey, we're going to have games in November that actually matter. And we haven't had that in like 3 or 4 years. And we don't. And it's been a long time since we've had games that matter in November. And that's disappointing and a tough place to be, considering this is a sport that we love so much and considering that the path to a playoff is as open as it has been, in years, right? I mean, it used to be you lose 1 game, you're done. Then it became you lose 2 games, you're done. Now it's you lose 4 games and maybe you're done, right? And here's Florida sitting at 3-5, so we're definitely done. And, in the in the intermediary, we're sort of left in limbo because we don't know who the coach will be next year. And, these guys, obviously, I mean, I don't expect them to fall apart, because the reality is that if you're a college football player, you're doing two things. You're putting tape down so that you earn more NIL money where you're at. You put tape down so you earn more NIL money someplace else, or you put tape down so you end up in the NFL. Like, those are the three things. Like, whether you want to play for your team or not is irrelevant. And the other thing, and I said this about Napier at one point along the way, is you don't get to this level without being, one, supremely confident, and two, being a tough SOB. Like, Nick Saban, he didn't care who he was playing. He wanted to torture them when he went out there on a Saturday. That's his personality, right? I think for the most part, if you're a high level college football player, like if you've worked your tail off to become a player worthy of starting in the SEC, you are someone who's wired differently than 99% of the 99% of the populace. And so this idea that there's, I'm just going to lay down. It's like, nah, that's not the way these guys are wired. I don't expect them to lay down. What I expect is that they're going to have some of the same limitations that they've had throughout the course of the year, right? That there's not this magic wand that getting rid of Billy Napier, all of a sudden we're going to put up 40 points a game. And I think that's what the Georgia game sort of proved, right? Is that this isn't a Napier problem in terms of like the end game stuff was aggravating and probably cost him a game or two along the way. But for the most part, the reason this team was losing games was not because of Billy Napier's on-field coaching on the weekends. It was because the team was not a dynamic offense just in general, right? And for years, the team struggled on defense as well. That's why they were losing games. And so the idea that the guys who were on the staff, who were working just as hard, if not harder, to drive those changes forward over the course of the last 4 years, we're going to be able to change it in a week where you had a bye week. I thought, I said this last week, I thought was relatively misguided that we were probably going to see the same team coming out. The hope was, again, an extra week to get healthy for Lagway, that he was going to come out and play better. And then the other hope was that without having sort of the guillotine hanging over Billy Napier, that the team would be able to come out and play loose and take some chances and maybe convert some things that they hadn't been able to do prior to that. Neither one of those was true, right? Like, the offense didn't come out and play loose in a way that, like the guillotine hanging over Napier was preventing it. And, they didn't come out and take an enormous amount of chances either. And so, we got another 20-point performance, and we're going to see very similar stuff for the rest of the year. And now it's a question of opponents, right? That's why I looked at you incredulously about the Tennessee and the Ole Miss games, because I'm like, it really comes down to, Kentucky, that should be a win because Kentucky's not very good. Florida State should be very competitive because Florida State's not very good. Tennessee's a pretty good team. Ole Miss, I think, is a really good team. And, now that one will have a little bit of extra stuff because there's going to be some venom for the Florida fans when going into.
I just saw Tennessee now lose to Oklahoma. Should have got beat by Mississippi State. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anybody that's like truly differentiated in the SEC this year.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why Ole Miss is where they're at. It's one of the reasons why Alabama's where they're at. I think the criticism of the SEC is usually stupid, where people are like, oh, the SEC bias, all that sort of stuff. Honestly, I think we got a bunch of teams in the top 25, but not the top 10. In the SEC this year. I think that's a legitimate criticism of the conference this year. I think it boils down to quarterback play. I think they're better quarterbacks at other programs throughout the country. And, if one of these
just
SEC
because
teams,
of just these guys who didn't live up to it. Lagway, Sellers, Manning.
Well, but even
Missouri's
then,
got hurt quarterbacks
but even then, Manning's the only one who's on a team that truly has a talent advantage, right?
Yeah.
Like Gunnar Stockton, we all looked at and said, like everybody else seemed to like Garrett Nussmeier, not over here. So, the teams that had talent advantages were limited in terms of what they had at quarterback. And so you end up with a bunch of teams in that 10 to 20, 10 to 25 range overall. I don't think Alabama's a top 10 team. I think Alabama's sitting there 11th, 12th, 13th. Are they going to make the playoff? Sure. But some of that is because of the general competition in the SEC. I think the Ole Miss team from last year would be undefeated and beat the crap out of everybody right now. Right. I think that team last year was way better than anybody who's in the SEC right now.
You don't think, let me go back a little bit. You don't think Bama's a top 10 team this year?
No, I think Alabama is going to get exposed in the playoff.
They might, but it's just a product of the system. I don't think there's 10 better teams than them.
Well, I mean, that may be true, but I mean, I'd have to go look and see who all's in front of them, right? But I think if you told me Oregon versus Alabama, Indiana versus Alabama, Ohio State versus Alabama, like there's some teams in that top 10 where I'd go, yeah, I don't think that game's going to be relative. I don't think this game's going to be all that close. And you know,
Ohio State has to be the least talked about number one team I can think about forever.
Well, I mean, we'll see. They get Indiana in a couple of weeks, don't they?
No,
No,
in the title game. In the title game,
I thought they played them during the season.
I looked it up today because I thought the same thing, and I think I even may have said that a couple weeks ago, but they don't. And it might have been people talking about because they're going to play in a title game, likely, I guess. So, Purdue, UCLA, Rutgers, Michigan.
You're right. And Indiana gets at Penn State, Wisconsin, then at Purdue. So you know why they're not getting talked about? This is completely a function of the playoff, right? They're not getting talked about because they can lose 2 of those 3 games, and they'll still make the playoff, which is, you know.
I mean, they played Texas to open up the season. All eyes were on them then. That's it. They played one ranked team, Illinois. Illinois is not even ranked anymore.
Yeah.
Penn State was supposed to be a big game this past weekend. It certainly was not. I mean, it's the least talked about number one. And look, not there. It's just part of the schedule a lot. They just haven't had the key games yet. You know, they beat a good Washington team 24-6. I mean, that's oddly enough. Well, and we'll see where Texas goes. Texas, you know, of course, beat Oklahoma, beat Vandy. I mean, crazy to say they beat Vandy, and that means a whole lot, but it does this year. It's crazy. They're the number one team in the country, and hardly anybody's talking about them. And I think rightfully so, just because of the schedule. And that doesn't mean they're not the best team. I'm just saying this is the least talked about number one team that I can remember.
Yeah, well, college football is in a new era, man. We end up talking about Indiana and then argue about BYU at number 8. And, you know, Notre Dame, after starting 0-2, is now in the top 10, is going to make the freaking playoff. You have Virginia at 8-1 in the ACC because Miami is 6-2. Oh, man. Georgia Tech 8-1 as well. We're going to have a Georgia Tech Virginia ACC championship game. Boy, that'll draw numbers. You know, it's like this is the problem.
This reminds me of when the ACC brought in Miami, and it was supposed to be these FSU and Miami games because, you know, Jacksonville got the ACC title game. And when Miami came to the ACC, Jacksonville was banking on the ACC title game being FSU and Miami every single year. It didn't happen one time. Miami hasn't even won the conference since they've been in it. That's what it reminds me of when you just talked about, because that's what the ACC turned into. As soon as they came in and went, you know, split the 2 divisions, the ACC title game never lived up to the hype that many thought it could be. And you might get that again this year. I mean, Will, it is so weird. If you go look at the college football schedule this week, hey, guess what? Clemson and FSU, they are in prime time. Prime time on ACC Network.
I mean, that's what happens when you lose last second. Who did Clemson lose to this past week?
Duke.
Oh, there you go. Football powerhouse Duke. I will say it's interesting when you look at the overall top 10 rankings. You got me looking at the top 10 rankings here. So Ohio State's number 1, but then you start going down the list. Yep. Indiana, relatively new coach. A&M, new coach. Alabama, new coach. Georgia, all right, Kirby's been there for a while. Oregon, new coach. Ole Miss, hopefully new coach soon. BYU, new coach. Texas Tech, new coach. Notre Dame, Freeman was a new coach, right? He took over when Kelly left. Oklahoma, Venables. Virginia, pretty sure they have a new coach. Texas, Sark, right? So, like, Louisville, they had somebody take over relatively recently. I mean,
Brom, when he took over in 22, I think.
And then you got Vandy with Clark Lee, who took over about the same time that Napier did. Georgia Tech Key, he took over, a year after Napier did?
Yes.
I mean, now some of this is there's just a lot of turnover at the head coaching position in college football. But some of it is if you get it right, you end up in the top 10, right? Like that's sort of the lesson here is that when you get it right, you end up in the top 10. So hopefully that's what we're talking about next year. And, you know, I don't care whether we're talking about Ohio State next year. I just hope we're talking about Florida being in this 1 through 12 position rather than being like 36th on the FPI, which
Mm.
is better than their 2-5 record would indicate, right? Which is pretty much all there is at this point left.
Yay, more victories.
Well, I got some
I
flack.
didn't want that to sound like, when I'm saying, hey, Florida can go out there and play the rest of the schedule tough. I don't mean that in the moral victory way. Go out there and win the freaking game. But, I
25th in
expect
the
Florida to be
ESPN
competitive.
FPI. I said 37th. They're actually 25th in the ESPN
It's
FPI.
nuts. That thing needs some reworking, by the way.
Yeah, probably. It's got some flaws. That's true.
All right, good stuff, Will.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm this one left me discouraged, man. I gotta be honest. It just did. This is one of those where
me
it's
too,
like,
man.
well, I was texting a buddy like in the middle of the game, just going, the kicking the balls is coming. It's coming. Like, just let's get prepared. It's coming. Sure enough, there it goes. Like, it's just like, it sucks to be at that place, right? Where I know Knudsen at one point earlier this year was asking me, are we the Cleveland Browns? But I was watching a documentary because the World Series was on this last couple of weeks about the Boston Red Sox. In some way, it feels like that too, right? Where you just get to the precipice of where you're like, oh, we're about to get over the edge. It's like, nah, right through Buckner's legs. It's like, that's what it feels like sometimes on the field these weeks. But is what it is. It'll be better at some point. Some point along the way, this team's gonna be good. Hopefully it's after we've got a dynamic head coach who's talking trash about how fat Kirby is in the not too distant future.
Oh, from your mouth to all the ears out there. That's what we're going with. All right, there we go. Will Miles at Will Miles SCC and at Read and Reaction. I'm the host of Gators Breakdown. Hey, Junior, thanks for the donation there. Getting us right here late in the episode, but that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. So you can find me at GatorDave_SEC for Will. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown.